I'm sorry, Lauren, but your position's been deemed redundant. The word hit like a blunt object wrapped in corporate perfume, soft on the outside, deadly on impact. Across from me sat Monica, our shiny new operations director, speaking as if she'd practiced the line in front of a mirror between sips of her almond milk macchiato. We were in a conference room that smelled like disinfectant and panic. To my left, HR clutched a blue folder like it was the Constitution. To my right, Rick, the general manager, stared down at his polished loafers like they might explain the economy. I used to mentor Monica, taught her how to write a vendor recap that didn't read like a BuzzFeed article and how to navigate supplier implosions without crying. Now she was flanked by HR and middle management, telling me my existence was inconvenient. "Effective immediately," she added, eyes darting to the printed script in front of her. I didn't flinch. 14 years at Hartwell Systems, gone faster than an expired conference snack. I removed my ID badge, slid it across the table, then set my company laptop beside it, still covered in sticky notes and a half-drafted recovery plan. Rick coughed, but still wouldn't look up. HR cleared her throat. "Do you have any questions?" she asked. Probably new, just trying to check boxes and survive her first termination meeting. "Just one," I said sweetly, reaching into my purse. I pulled out a black leather folder with subtle gold lettering on the corner that read Redwood Integration Model. Monica's nostrils flared when she saw it. "Does the severance package include any residual rights to intellectual property developed off hours?" I asked casually. Silence. HR blinked. Monica frowned. "No worries," I added with a smile. "Just curious." I stood, smoothed my skirt, and closed the folder. No slamming, no theatrics. Dignity is best served cold, and I came packed in dry ice. Rick mumbled something that might have been "take care." HR said, "Thank you for your service," like I was a retired appliance. I nodded once and left. The hallway felt unnaturally bright, too quiet. Junior staff looked up as I passed, then immediately looked away. One of them, Lila, I think, half stood like she might say something, then changed her mind and sat back down. No one said goodbye. No card, no cupcakes, not even a perfunctory email. 14 years, and I left like a ghost. The break room fridge still had a note I'd written last month. "Please don't eat the HR director's yogurt." That, apparently, was my legacy. Outside, it was raining. Of course it was. I didn't rush. I didn't cry. I walked to my car, dropped my badge in the glove box, and sat there for a full minute, listening to the rain thrum against the windshield. Then I pulled out the real folder, the one they didn't know about. A clean gray binder embossed with the name Cascade Plan. Phase 4. When I got home, I made tea and unlocked the steel file box under my guest bed. Inside, printed strategy maps, vendor performance charts, a burner phone, and a notebook filled with diagrams and post-it notes in 4 colors. The phone buzzed. One text. "Final signing tomorrow. We move at 6 a.m. I took a slow sip of tea. The last time Monica tried to impress me, she gave me a mug that said "Boss Lady." Cute. Now she was about to learn what a real boss looked like. It hadn't started as revenge. It began 2 years earlier at a logistics conference in Chicago. One of those soul-sucking beige carpet events where everyone smells like burnt coffee and ambition. I was standing by Hartwell's booth, pretending to care about palette optimization, when a woman in a slate-gray blazer approached. Her name tag said Alexis. No company listed. "You're Lauren Keller?" she asked. "I am," I said cautiously. "Someone I work with would like to meet you." That night, over bourbon in a hotel bar, I met 2 men from Redwood Equity Partners. One British, one silent, both with the kind of posture that came from generational wealth. "We're acquiring several mid-tier logistics firms," the Brit said. Quietly. "We don't want figureheads. We want architects." They didn't try to charm me. They studied me like I was a blueprint. They needed insider insight, someone who could map dysfunction and identify rot from the inside out. I didn't ask how they found me. I just listened. They were willing to pay handsomely, but I had one condition. I'd stay invisible until the ink was dry. No involvement until the buyouts were irreversible, and I wanted veto power on all internal appointments post-merger. They exchanged a look. "That's unusual." "So is offering me a seat at your table," I said. A week later, a courier delivered a package to my house. A non-disclosure thick enough to stun an ox, and a consulting contract naming me Sentinel-1. Every month, encrypted data arrived. Financials, vendor rosters, leadership matrices, from companies Redwood planned to acquire. My job? Annotate, highlight, restructure. They called it mapping. I called it proof. Proof that I was never redundant, just waiting for the board to realize whose game they were actually playing. At Hartwell Systems, they saw me as background noise with good handwriting, the dependable one who remembered birthdays and fixed other people's fires without needing credit. But at Redwood Equity, I was the storm. I reviewed one acquisition after another, dissecting the kind of operational stupidity that got companies bleeding millions. There was Marlin Freight, a firm with 3 vice presidents and no automation system. I marked names in red ink. Dead weight. There was Dorset Logistics, where an executive billed $12,000 in client lunches over 1 quarter. I wrote one word: fire. Each time Redwood executed a cut, profits climbed. Warehouses ran smoother. The noise quieted. It was like watching a machine finally breathe right after years of being clogged by ego. Then came the Hartwell file. My company. Annotating it felt like performing surgery on my own organs. I flagged the same inefficiencies I'd raised in meetings for years. The unreviewed vendor contracts, the sloppy billing, the leadership bloat. I even made 3 turnaround models. One proposed restructuring procurement under a new EVP. Another redirected marketing funds into R&D. The third, my favorite, called for a competency audit across senior leadership. Guess whose name didn't pass that audit? Monica's. For 18 months, I fed Redwood my insights under the name Sentinel-1. No one at Hartwell suspected a thing. By the time the merger net tightened, I wasn't preparing for the fall. I was engineering the landing. It happened in silence. A boutique hotel in downtown Boston, 10th floor, curtains drawn. The kind of room where the wood gleams because it's real, and no one speaks above a whisper. It was 6:02 a.m. Redwood's lead counsel, Mr. Harlan, sat beside me. Older, calm, the kind of man who could sign away a company before breakfast and still make his tea time. Across the table were 3 representatives from Trident Holdings, the shell firm Redwood was using to finalize control of Hartwell. They didn't know who I was. I preferred it that way. "All that's left is the signature," Harlan said, adjusting his glasses. My heart didn't race. I'd been waiting for this moment for 2 years. One fluid stroke of a Mont Blanc pen later, Hartwell Systems ceased being what it thought it was. The air shifted. Control transferred. No applause, no toast, just gravity. I reached into my briefcase and handed Harlan a sealed envelope on cream paper, embossed with the Henderson and Brooks insignia. The firm handling executive appointments. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. Inside was a neatly typed list of integration placements across all 5 acquired firms: logistics, finance, compliance, tech. Every name cross-referenced by risk factor and performance. Third on that list, Lauren Keller, Executive Vice President, Integration Strategy, Hartwell Systems, effective immediately. Hidden 3 pages in, neither headline nor footnote, just quiet inevitability. Would you like to review the rollout memo? Harlan asked. No, I said. You have it. He did. Every word had been written by me weeks earlier, disguised as redwood boilerplate. The internal email was scheduled for 9 a.m. It announced the completed merger and the new leadership structure. A short paragraph, all corporate efficiency and restraint. Lauren Keller brings over a decade of internal systems expertise and strategic insight critical to post-merger success. At 7:15, the room emptied. I stayed seated, watching sunlight creep through the blackout curtains. You don't seem surprised, Harlan remarked. I'm not, I said. Patience is the luxury of the underestimated. He smiled faintly, collected his papers, and left me alone with the view. I thought about Monica, about Rick, about the HR rep's trembling hands when she said redundant, about every flagged discrepancy, every ignored suggestion, every meeting where I'd been talked over. They'd called me obsolete. Now they were mine. By 8:58, Redwood's system cued the press release. By 9 o'clock sharp, it hit every inbox across the company. Hartwell Systems joins Redwood Equity Portfolio, integration underway. Beneath the header, Lauren Keller, appointed Executive Vice President, Integration Strategy. Across town, Monica was still asleep, her phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. 42 unread messages. The subject lines told the story before she even opened them. M&A finalized. New EVP appointment. Keller? She sat bolt upright, scrambling for her laptop. Within seconds, the company homepage loaded. The red merger banner splashed across the top. Her eyes darted to the PDF link, clicked, scrolled. Page 2. There it was in black and white. My name. No warning. No approval chain. The announcement had already syndicated to LinkedIn, investor channels, and internal dashboards. Her phone rang. Rick. She didn't answer. Not yet. She was too busy realizing the woman she'd fired last week was now her new boss. When Monica finally answered Rick's call, her voice was tight, half awake, half afraid. Who authorized this? She snapped before he could even speak. Legal says it's valid, he stammered. Binding. They told us to cooperate fully with the transition team starting today. What transition team? She hissed. A pause on the line, static thick enough to choke on. They're in the conference room right now, he said. And Lauren isn't. Monica froze. Her mind churned through every file, every message, every moment she'd overlooked. She can't be part of this, she muttered, pacing her bedroom. But she already knew, because 2 days earlier, someone matching my description had been spotted taking the investor elevator at headquarters, the one only used for private board access. Why would she be on that elevator? Rick asked softly. No one answered. They didn't need to. If I'd been on that elevator, I wasn't visiting. I was moving. By 9:30, her laptop screen glowed with proof of her own undoing. My profile was already on the internal org chart, neat and professional. Executive Vice President, Integration Strategy. Hartwell Systems, a Redwood company. Underneath, brings operational continuity and strategic foresight essential to cross-company transformation. It was corporate poetry, the kind that buried knives in plain sight. At 10 a.m., the leadership Slack channels detonated. Department heads pinged Monica, legal, HR, anyone who might explain what just happened. Is this official? Who's reporting to whom? Does Keller outrank you? The questions kept stacking. No one had answers. Monica stared at her screen, the reflection of her own panic flickering back. Her assistant approached timidly. Monica, parking garage access updated overnight. So? Lauren Keller's name is on the list. Reserved space. Same level as yours. That was the moment the reality settled in. I hadn't come back as a ghost. I'd come back with keys. 3 days passed, They thought maybe I'd let things cool, that I'd be a name on a press release, but never show my face again. They didn't know me at all. On the morning of the third day, I arrived at Hartwell Systems' front doors, exactly 8:57 a.m. The lobby quieted the moment I stepped in. No badge swipe, no security clearance, just a nod from the new head of building security, wearing a redwood pin on his lapel. He held the door like he'd been briefed on exactly who I was. The receptionist, Kyle, blinked. "You're—" he started, but stopped himself. I smiled politely. "Good morning." Behind me walked two Redwood associates and Mr. Harlan, the same counsel from the signing. We didn't speak as we crossed the lobby. Our silence was its own kind of announcement. Greg, from accounting, actually stood up as I passed. "Welcome back," he said hesitantly, like he wasn't sure if he was greeting a VP or a ghost. I gave him a polite nod. At 9:04, I entered the executive conference room. Monica wasn't there. She'd called in remotely for the week. Convenient, considering her career now hinged on what was about to happen in person. "Gather all department heads," I said to the assistant at the door. 30 minutes. No exceptions." She nodded and rushed off. By 9:34, they were all seated. Nervous murmurs floated around the long glass table. I remained standing at the head, folder in hand. "Good morning," I said calmly. "This won't take long." Silence. "We are initiating a full review of strategic roles across every department. Leadership, reporting structures, performance evaluations, and value mapping against Redwood's integration objectives." I didn't look at anyone in particular, but I could feel all eyes on me. "This review is not ceremonial. It is a restructuring. Each of you will receive individualized packets this afternoon. Any position marked under review will require justification for retention." A few people stiffened in their chairs. "And yes," I added evenly, "that includes Monica's." The room shifted, the air suddenly thick with the sound of people realizing they were no longer safe. "Your cooperation is expected. Your transparency is required. Your loyalty," I said, "is no longer assumed." I closed the folder and straightened, dismissed. No speeches, no vindictive smile. I didn't come for closure. I came for compliance. As I walked out, I passed Monica's glass-walled office, untouched, full of fake plants and motivational quotes. On her desk sat a printed org chart. I picked up a red pen from her holder, circled my new title at the top, and left it there. Clarity is kindness. I took the elevator 2 floors up to my new office. Corner view, sunlight flooding across the desk that now had my nameplate. Lauren Keller, EVP Integration Strategy. The irony wasn't lost on me. 14 years of sitting in windowless rooms, fixing other people's fires in the shadows, and now the light hit me directly. I set my folder down, took one deep breath, and opened the blinds wider. No more hiding. Outside my glass wall, I could see the swirl of movement below. People whispering, phones ringing, department heads already reporting the morning's announcement. I didn't need to eavesdrop to know the tone. Fear disguised as curiosity. The noise of a company realizing who really held the steering wheel now. At 11:03 the next morning, Monica joined a Zoom call she hadn't scheduled. Subject line, transition resolution, finalization required. The invite came from Redwood's legal department. No preamble, no agenda. She clicked in, composed and sharp in her blazer, pretending the world hadn't shifted under her. When the screen loaded, her face froze for a fraction of a second. I was there, flanked by 2 Redwood advisors and 1 HR representative who looked like she'd been awake since the merger hit the press. Monica tried to take control first. "I'm not sure what this meeting is about." I lifted my hand slightly. "This won't take long." My voice calm, no heat. "You're here to choose." Her brow furrowed. "Choose what?" One of the advisors slid a PDF across the shared screen. Option 1, he said smoothly. Accept a transition to Director of Special Projects. No direct reports, 1-year probation, reporting to Ms. Keller. Monica's mouth twitched. And option 2? Voluntary separation, I said evenly. Enhanced exit package, full NDA, no exceptions. Her jaw tightened. You're serious? It's a merger clause, I replied. HR cleared her throat, trying to sound helpful. We recommend you take some time. No need, I interrupted softly. She has until end of day. Monica's voice rose. End of day? That's absurd. The other advisor leaned forward, velvet calm. Default triggers termination. Standard payout. No enhancements. No references. Her eyes darted between us, searching for leverage that didn't exist. You're firing me? I'm giving you a decision, I said, leaning back slightly. What happens after that is purely procedural. On another square of the screen sat Rick, the general manager. Camera on, mic muted. He hadn't said a word, just stared like a man realizing his silence had an expiration date. This is personal, Monica said finally. This is operational, I corrected. Your leadership metrics failed continuity benchmarks. The loss projections tied to vendor misallocations under your signature alone. I turned my laptop slightly, just enough for her to glimpse the edge of a file on my desktop labeled 14Y. Her eyes caught it immediately. You've been compiling a dossier? She whispered. I've been doing my job, I said, for 14 years. Her shoulders stiffened, but her voice softened. So this is revenge? I almost smiled. Revenge is emotional. This is arithmetic. HR looked ready to pass out. Rick blinked, finally unmuted himself, and croaked. Maybe we should... Doug, I said quietly. Don't. His mouth shut instantly. Monica tried again, desperate now. The board won't stand for this. The board already did, I replied. They ratified the restructuring this morning. You're the last one holding up execution. I could see it then, the flicker behind her eyes, running the math, calculating dignity against survival. She exhaled shakily. You'll never rebuild this team without me. I let a breath linger. Redundancy, I said softly, can be contagious. Choose your distance carefully. She didn't reply, just stared at the screen, jaw locked, then disconnected without a word. 10 minutes later, HR's inbox pinged. Subject line, separation option B, accepted. Attached was a signed NDA, time-stamped, scanned. The legal advisor exhaled through his nose, almost relieved. Strategic risk eliminated, he murmured. Indeed, I said, adding the same note to my digital file before closing it. I took a sip of coffee, calm as a surgeon after a successful operation. This wasn't vengeance. This was cleanup. Monica sat frozen long after the call ended, staring at her own reflection in the dark screen. Her career had collapsed, not with a shout, but a click. When she finally moved, it was mechanical. She drafted an email, rewriting it over and over until the tone balanced perfectly between grace and denial. It has been an honor to serve Hartwell Systems through this time of transformation. While I did not anticipate this transition, I trust the company will continue its journey with integrity. I leave, knowing I gave it my all. She hovered over the tow field, all staff at Hartwell, and clicked send. Nothing happened. She tried again. Error. You do not have permission to perform this action. Her face drained. She opened Slack, logged out, tried accessing the shared drive. Denied. Her company email, disabled. Even her phone line had been rerouted to voicemail. The system she once controlled now treated her like malware. When she opened her laptop's webcam to check her reflection, The screen was black. Not off. Disabled. Monica wasn't leaving Hartwell. She had already been erased from it. While she was unraveling in silence, the board assembled upstairs in the executive conference room at precisely 10 o'clock a.m. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling glass, glinting off polished walnut. For years I'd entered that room only as a background presence, to take minutes, provide data, clean up other people's messes. Today, I walked straight to the head of the table. The placard read, Lauren Keller, EVP, Integration Strategy. No one questioned it. No one dared. Shall we begin? I asked, settling into the chair like it had always been mine. Around me sat the board. Harrington from finance, old school, polite with an ulcer of ambition. Carter from compliance, sharp as a scalpel. Delaney, Redwood's liaison, silent but alert. A few glances exchanged, a few shallow nods. The chair fit perfectly. Wide, firm, sun-warmed. The kind built for people who didn't need to be told they belonged. One of them cleared his throat. Should we wait a few minutes for Ms. Monroe? He asked, using Monica's last name like it still meant something. I met his eyes. She won't be joining us. A pause. Then pens clicked, laptops opened, and the world moved on without her. I opened the first folder in front of me. Integration Roadmap, Phase 2. Charts, timelines, leadership matrices. My handwriting annotated every margin. I spoke slowly, precisely, letting each word fill the space that used to swallow me. Vendor consolidation will begin next quarter. Department redundancies will be reviewed by month end. Non-performing assets and personnel will be identified for removal. No one interrupted, not because they agreed, but because they understood. The word hung in the air. Redundant. Once a label for me, now my tool. I let it linger just long enough before turning the page. This next section covers leadership recalibration. I continued. Post-merger performance assessments will determine which roles align with Redwood's continuity standards. Those that don't. I let the sentence fade, unfinished but understood. Carter tapped her pen. You've already mapped replacements, haven't you? I met her gaze. Of course, planning without execution is theater. A few people actually smiled at that. Nervous, but genuine. Then proceed, said Harrington quietly. I clicked to the next slide. Projected synergies appeared in neat bars of green and gold. We expect 17% operational lift by Q4. Risk exposure drops by half. Compliance costs decrease 12% once audit redundancies are resolved. The meeting stretched past an hour, but time felt irrelevant. Every chart, every clause, every word reclaimed a piece of power they once denied me. This wasn't triumph. It was equilibrium. When it ended, I gathered my notes, closed the folder, and stood. Thank you for your time, I said. Next session is Tuesday, 8 sharp. Attendance is mandatory. As I turned to leave, I glanced once toward the empty seat where Monica's nameplate still rested. The leather cushion caught the sunlight, a hollow echo of authority. 14 years ago, I'd been the one sitting outside this room, waiting for decisions made by people who barely remembered my name. Now, they waited for mine. Outside, I passed the same hallway where HR once escorted me out. The same floor tiles, same hum of fluorescent lights. Only this time, they didn't look past me. Every head lifted as I walked by. Every whisper paused mid-sentence. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. In corporate life, stillness is its own kind of power, and I had mastered it. By late afternoon, Hartwell Systems no longer felt like the same company I'd left. The halls hummed with a different rhythm now. Not panic exactly, but a cautious silence, the kind that follows a controlled detonation. Everyone had heard about the restructuring meeting. Everyone had seen Monica's name quietly disappear from directories, her office dark, her login credentials revoked. The ghost of her authority still lingered, but only as a warning. I stopped by HR on my way to the executive wing. The department head, a nervous woman named Paula, nearly jumped from her chair when I appeared at her doorway. "Ms. Keller, good afternoon," she stammered. "We're finalizing the transition paperwork for everyone," I finished. "I know." I placed a file on her desk. "Here's the updated reporting structure. Send it to Redwood's integration portal by end of day." Paula nodded quickly. "And Miss Monroe's files?" "Handled," I said. "Archive them under separation, code 14Y. She didn't ask what that meant. Smart woman. As I left, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Neat suit, steady eyes, the same woman who'd once sat in a fluorescent corner cubicle eating yogurt for lunch, invisible. Except now, invisibility had turned into armor. I reached my new office, the one that overlooked the Boston skyline. The city was washed in late sunlight, gold against the glass towers. My desk phone blinked with new voicemails. I ignored them. Instead, I opened my laptop, the one labeled Redwood Secure, and scrolled through the updated internal dashboard. My name glowed on the executive tree beside a new tag: Authorized Signatory, Operational Mergers. That was the moment it hit me. Not satisfaction, not even victory, but clarity. They'd never fired me because I was redundant. They fired me because I was irreplaceable in a system that rewarded ignorance. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Jenna, from marketing, stepped in hesitantly. "Ms. Keller, I just wanted to say, congratulations. We didn't know, and..." I looked up. "Now you do," I said gently, not cruelly. She nodded, flustered but relieved, then slipped away. When she was gone, I turned to the window. Below, employees were filing out for the evening, clutching coffee cups and tote bags, unaware they were walking through the aftermath of a quiet revolution. The world wouldn't call it that, of course. Just another corporate transition, another merger headline. But revolutions don't always need fire. Sometimes they're written in black ink and executed in silence. The next morning, I arrived early. The building smelled of fresh polish and stale tension. I passed Kyle at reception again. He stood a little straighter this time, offering a respectful, "Good morning, Ms. Keller." I returned a nod and kept walking. At 8:45, I met with Harlan and 2 Redwood executives in the same glass-walled conference room where Monica once handed me my termination letter. The symmetry was delicious, but I didn't dwell on it. "Legal transition complete," Harlan reported. "Redwood's Oversight Committee approved your full autonomy on integration phases. You'll have discretionary authority for staffing and budget reallocations effective immediately." "Perfect," I said, flipping through the summary. "And the board?" "They're aligned," he replied. The vote was unanimous. I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. Then let's move to Phase 3. Phase 3 wasn't about revenge. It was about design. Rebuilding Hartwell into what it should have been before bureaucracy and egos strangled it. I'd already handpicked 6 department heads who would survive the audit. People who cared about the work, not the titles. The rest would either adapt or vanish. Before the meeting ended, Harlan gave a small smile. "You've done something rare, Miss Keller." "What's that?" I asked. Win without making noise. I met his eyes. "Noise is for people who need attention. I prefer results." When they left, I stayed a moment longer, tracing my fingertips along the edge of the conference table. Same grain, same cold polish. But this time, the power on this side of it was mine. Outside, the skyline shimmered. Somewhere across the river, Monica was probably still trying to convince herself it was all unfair. Maybe it was, but fairness had nothing to do with it. This was structure, sequence, consequence. The company had called me redundant. Now I was the one deciding who was. 3 weeks later, the transition was complete. Hartwell Systems had been reborn under the Redwood Equity umbrella. Sleeker, sharper, stripped of the dead weight that used to choke its progress. The company newsletter framed it as a new era of operational excellence, but the real story was simpler. The ghosts had been cleared out, and the living finally had work worth doing. From my office window, I could see the ripple of order settling back into routine. Meetings started on time. Reports were clean. The endless loops of circle-back emails had vanished. People looked nervous, yes, but productive. Fear had a funny way of sharpening focus. I spent most of my mornings reviewing department assessments. Each name told a story. Some survived, some didn't. But every decision was grounded in data, not emotion. That's what they never understood. Power wasn't about dominance. It was about precision. The kind of quiet accuracy that dismantles arrogance molecule by molecule. At 10:15, I received an internal memo from Redwood's board. Subject: Integration Performance Review. Preliminary results. The projections glowed like validation. Efficiency up 18%. Operating costs down 22%. Customer retention highest in 7 years. The system was finally humming. My phone buzzed with a new message. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Heard you made EVP. Congrats. Some of us always knew you'd end up running the place. Greg. Accounts. I smiled faintly. Greg, who once looked away as HR walked me out. People remembered differently when you held the keys. I typed back one line. Thanks, Greg. We're all just finding our place. By noon, I had my next meeting. Board alignment, Q1 forecasts. Same room, same table. The air felt lighter now. No tension, no unspoken resistance. The old guard was gone. The new team, younger, hungrier, pragmatic, filed in one by one, taking notes before I even spoke. Let's begin, I said, opening the presentation. Our integration benchmarks are exceeding expectations. We'll move forward with vendor streamlining and launch the BrightPath initiative by spring. Carter nodded approvingly. And the legacy redundancies? Phased out, I replied simply, including executive redundancies. I didn't need to elaborate. The room understood. As the meeting wrapped, Harrington leaned forward. I have to say, Keller, this company's never looked cleaner. You've done what 5 predecessors couldn't. I met his gaze evenly. I just did what needed to be done. When they left, I remained seated, letting the silence settle again. It wasn't the silence of isolation this time. It was the hum of control, of every moving piece doing what it was meant to. On my desk sat a small envelope delivered that morning, cream-colored heavy stock, no sender listed. I opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten note. To the woman they called redundant. Thank you for proving us wrong. A friend at Redwood. I laughed quietly, not out of pride, but because it felt like punctuation. The story had written itself to its natural end. That evening, as the office lights dimmed and the skyline turned amber, I walked the halls alone. The same corridor where I once carried a cardboard box filled with my belongings now carried the echo of my heels and the faint hum of server fans. The walls were lined with framed words like integrity, innovation, teamwork. I paused under one of them, studying my reflection in the glass. Same woman, different gravity. When I reached reception, Kyle looked up from his desk. Heading out early, Ms. Keller? He asked. Just on time, I said. Everything's running on schedule now. He grinned nervously. Feels different lately. It is, I said softly. It's working. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. I stood for a moment on the curb, watching the building glow behind me. A tower of glass and order that finally made sense. They had called me obsolete, redundant, replaceable. But the truth was simpler. I was the blueprint they'd been too blind to read. And now, standing at the top of what they'd built, I understood the quiet satisfaction of winning the only way that mattered. Not by shouting, not by vengeance, by taking back the system, piece by piece, until it finally bore my name. Lauren Keller, Executive Vice President, Integration Strategy, Redwood Hartwell Holdings. The woman they fired had vanished. The one they underestimated ran the company. Checkmate.